Hello friends and welcome back to Haas of Props. Today we're going to be focusing on IG-12's legs, but we're going to build these a little differently. We're actually going to start with the feet and work our way up. That way when we get them finished, the pelvis area can then just sit right on top. Let's get started. To make the legs, we're going to start at the bottom of the feet and work our way up the leg. Part A is cut from some 3/4 inch plywood, and this will give us a solid support to build on. In the center of each, I cut a 1-inch diameter circle. This hole will allow the supports to attach to a wooden base. Part B is made with 3 pieces of 10mm foam glued together. The piece with the extension should be facing out. These can then be glued to the long side edges of Part A with contact cement. While I do that, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you can be notified when the next part of IG is ready to be viewed. Next, Part C can be glued onto the sides of the B piece with the extensions. Then Part D can be glued onto the other 4 short sides of Part A. Next, Parts E can be attached to the outer sides of each Part B. Then a Part F can be glued onto all the 4 side slopes on each foot. Part G can be centered and attached on the inside of Parts B. Then, Part H can be used to close up the front and back of this area like so. The shop I work at was getting rid of these metal brackets, so I grabbed a couple to use as foot attachments on the baseboard. But right now I'm doing a test fit when I attach Part I to make sure that the top of the piece sits flush with the bracket. I know brackets like these aren't readily available, but alternative ones can be made with PVC pipe connectors. Next, Part J can be centered on the front and back of each foot and attached just like this. Parts K are made with some 1/2-inch PVC pipe capped with 2mm foam, some 6mm foam circles on either end, and the center wrapped with 2mm foam. Each of these can be attached to Part A and Part J like so. Then Part L can be attached to the top center of each Part J. In this case I'm using CA glue because it's such a small piece. Then I use this tip on my Dremel and carve a slight divot into the center of each. While I was at it, I went ahead and did the same to all the Part E's. This will just add some rivet detailing to make the foam look more interesting. With Part M, I glue it up the middle of each Part J with CA glue. Next, Part N can be attached right here with contact cement on each side of each foot. Make sure you press firmly to get good secure bonds and your foam won't lift when we use the heat gun later on. Then Part O can be centered on each Part N and glued down. And then the 4 Part Ps can be added to help cover the seam. Since the legs support the whole body, I'm using some 1/2-inch aluminum conduit as the main support structure. Some will stick into the metal brackets on the base, and the rest will be inserted into some PVC. To make the conduit fit inside the 3/4 inch PVC pipe, I wrap sections with 2mm foam. This will give it a nice snug fit. Some of the conduit sticks out of the PVC. This is what gets inserted into the brackets. The conduit with the PVC can be inserted into the feet, and the PVC should rest on top of Part I, and the conduit should be hidden inside the foot. Next, each Part Q can have a hole drilled out in the center with a spade bit, just like what we did when we built the head. These can then be slid down the pipe and glued onto the top of Part I. I'm squeezing some E6000 in between the pipe and the foam just to secure it. You could use CA glue or contact cement, but it might get a little messy, and E6000 just remains soft enough so that you can get the piece in place before it starts to cure. Each part R starts with some 20mm foam and has some 2mm foam pieces glued onto the sides and top. The pieces also get a slight concave curve bevel on one end so it fits nicely onto the pipe. The other end should sit nicely on the surface of part I. 2 of these can be added onto each foot. Then parts S can be glued onto each side of part Q, like so. Next, part T can be wrapped around the PVC about 2 inches above where the parts R touch. Then part U can be wrapped under each bottom edge like this. Each part V can get a channel carved into the back of it, and then these can be added onto the front and the back of each part T. This works great to cover up the T seams. Then parts W can be added between the bottom edges of the V's. I'm using CA glue since they're small, and a few drops of zip kicker will cure the glue instantly so I don't have to wait for it to dry. Next, we're going to take apart X and use a heat gun to warm the foam slightly. Then give it a slight bend like so, and hold it until it cools back down. Once it's cooled back down, slide it onto the pipe with the tip pointing up. Make sure the tip is facing forward on your legs. Part Y will make a kneecap, so make sure you make 2. We want to close up all the seams using contact cement. Press firmly so the seams will stay together as the ball joint comes together. Once I have all the small seams glued together, I take some 6mm foam triangular dowels that I cut myself. I have another video on my channel showing how you can make these on your own, and I glue these around the ball joint. It's easier to start in the middle and work your way out so that you end up with 5 lines on each joint. Then the large seam can be glued together, and this can then be slid onto the leg. Next, slide part Z onto the top of this, and then another part X can be added, but this time the tip points down. Parts AA can be attached onto the PVC about 3/4 of an inch above the last X piece. I used a medium grit sanding disc on my Dremel to even out the seam. Then part BB can be glued and wrapped around right above AA. Each part CC attaches to the PVC exposed between parts X and AA and wraps up and over AA and onto BB. Then I used the wood burner to create a shallow channel just like what I did on both IG's head and chest. Part DDs are made with 1/2-inch PVC capped at both ends with 2mm foam and wrapped with 3 strips of 2mm foam, 1 at the top and 2 at the bottom, just like this. These are attached to the outer sides of the legs where parts T and V make a groove. Part EE is some 1/2-inch dowel wrapped on either end with some 6mm and 2mm foam strips. It's not shown in the video, but I ended up adding another 2mm foam strip over the 6mm foam. This piece is included in the template though. This can then be glued onto the left leg just here. To make the top of the leg, I stacked and glued several pieces of different thicknesses and diameters and used the spade bit to cut out a hole in the center of each stack. I then attached these to the PVC with some E6000. I found I needed to add another smaller circle to the top. It's included in the template and it can be added into this process right now, but you won't notice it in the video until we attach the upper body. Next, take part GG and wrap it around the leg before you attach the small ends together with contact cement. You want to attach these like this or you won't be able to get the piece in place correctly. Once the ends are secure, the entire piece can be glued onto the bottom circle of the hip joint. Have the seam you just created facing to the inside of the leg, so the large area of foam of the piece is facing out to the sides, and parts GG will look like IG's thighs. Then the parts HH can be glued on the inner facing side just like this here. The two parallel lines can be melted into the foam with the wood burner like before. Part II is put together like this, and we want to make sure that the 6mm foam is pointing down when we attach it to the leg, about an inch above part HH. Parts JJ are assembled by gluing the 4mm foam onto the dowel with some CA glue, and the 2mm foam strips get wrapped around the dowel like this. This little rectangle gets added on here, and the 2mm foam circle can be glued onto the 4mm foam. You want to attach these so that the rectangle is facing out towards the front, and they can be glued in place right here. To make parts KK, I'm using coaxial cable that IT was thrown away, wrapped with a strip of 2mm foam. You can use this, or you can make some tubing like what we did for IG torso build. These can be glued on top of part II, and the cable should reach the underside of the hip joint circles. I use the same technique for the longer cables as well. The left leg gets two, one attached to part DD and the other attaches to part EE, and the right leg only has one attached to part DD. For my base, I'm using some 3/4 inch plywood, and to attach the foot brackets, I'm using 4 of these screws in each. Whoops, hold on. Okay, now that they are attached, the conduit in the bottom of the feet can be inserted into the bracket hole, and the foot should encase the bracket. Now the legs can be tightly inserted into the torso pelvis unit. Then we can take our hip pieces from the pelvis video and glue these onto the side just here and onto the elbow connector. But I don't glue them to the leg circles because I want to be able to take him apart and transport when needed. Then this piece we also made in the pelvis build can be glued inside of the PVC pipe supports on the bottom of the pelvis unit. And there you have it, IG-12's legs, and now he can finally stand up. And we are finally narrowing in on the build being complete. So by having a wooden base and the interior metal supports, that's what gives IG really good balance, and he doesn't need any visible supports. So he can just stand in the corner, he can stand in the middle of the room, or what have you, but he is just freestanding and looks more natural than if he has some support coming out the back and into the wall or something. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to Haas of Props. And don't forget to tune in for the next video where we will be building his adjustable arms. And remember, if you are building any of my builds or using any of my templates, feel free and tag me at Haas of Props on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, because I would really like to see your fantastic work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.